Kira pushed aside a thick branch with purple leaves on it and went deeper into the jungle. There was no noise when she walked on the wet ground. For years, she had been hunting, tracking, and killing. It was something her people did. That was what gave them strength. Tolera 7's jungle was thick and wet. Everywhere there were strange plants that changed color from purple to deep blue as the light changed. The canopy was so thick that only thin beams of sunlight could get through. But Kira didn't need a lot of light. This was what her eyes were made for. Her scales, which looked like natural armor all over her body, changed color to match the things around her. At the moment, they were a mix of dark green and violet. She was almost impossible to see. She had been following the person for 2 whole days. 2 days of carefully following him, watching what he did, and figuring out his patterns. It was easy to follow the trail. It's too easy, really. Branches that are broken. Footprints in the soft mud. There were even some drops of blood where he must have cut himself on the sharp rocks by the river. People. The word itself made her laugh. On the Vakari homeworld, people talk about humans like they were a big joke. Skin that was soft and pink and tore easily. No claws. No scales. There are no natural weapons at all. They couldn't even see well in the dark. When Kira's brothers and sisters heard that she wanted to hunt a person for her first trophy, they laughed so hard that one of them almost choked. Rask, her clutch brother, had said a human with his mouth hanging open in shock. That's your choice? You might as well look for a tree. At least a tree doesn't run away. Where's the honor in that? Another person had said. You have to prove yourself against something that could hurt you. Something that can really fight back. But Kira had made up her mind. She had heard the tales, the gossip. Some of the older hunters said in hushed tones that people were more than they seemed, that they were hard to deal with, not predictable, in ways that had nothing to do with claws or teeth. It was dangerous. She wanted to see it for herself. She wanted to know if the rumors were true or if people really were the biggest letdown in the galaxy. So far, winning was disappointing. The trail left by the person told her everything she needed to know. He moved like a person who had never been hunted before. He stopped in places where anyone could see him. He walked in straight lines instead of zigzagging to throw off people who were following him. He had stopped to rest in 3 different places that didn't offer any protection at all. He had once sat down with his back to an open field, a mistake that a beginner would make, a mistake that could cost you your life. Kira had watched him from the shadows every time, wondering if he would figure out what he had done wrong. He never did. He was breathing hard and drinking water from a small metal container. He had no idea that death was less than 50 feet away. At that point, she could have killed him. Could have been over in seconds. But what was the sport in that? She also wanted to see what he would do. Wanted to know if he had any instincts for staying alive. She was getting her answer now that the 2 suns were setting, and the jungle was getting darker. And the answer was no. The twin suns of Tolera. 7 slowly sank below the horizon, turning the sky orange and red. The temperature fell quickly. Night came quickly and was very cold here. Most animals knew to find a place to hide, stay quiet, and stay safe. But not this person. Kira saw it through the trees ahead. A warm orange light. Light from a fire. She stopped and stared, not quite able to believe what she was seeing. The fool had started a fire. A fire. In the middle of a jungle full of animals that hunt. A bright, glowing sign that said, "I'm here. Come and eat me." Kira said felt a mix of pity and amusement. The stories might not have been true. Maybe people were just really dumb. All hunters on all worlds knew that fire drew attention. Fire meant food. Fire gave off heat. Fire meant that prey was easy to catch because it was sitting still. She moved from shadow to get closer. She already had her weapon in her hand. It was a curved knife made from the tooth of a Kashvar beast that was sharp enough to cut through bone. She had worked hard for this sword. It helped me through 5 successful hunts. Tonight would be the 6th. As she got closer, the campfire got bigger. She could hear the soft crackling of wood that was on fire, could smell the smoke. The person must be sitting right there, probably warming his weak, fragile hands, completely unaware that he was about to die. Kira's inner eyelids closed as a reflex when her kind was about to attack. It helped her concentrate and blocked out other things. Everything got smaller and smaller until it hit the target. The kill, the time. She got closer. 20 feet. 15. 10. She could now see the fire clearly through the last line of trees. She could see the person sitting there with their back to her. Great. He wouldn't even know it was coming. Kira raised her sword, and her muscles tensed. This was it. All she had to do was run up to him, close the gap in 2 seconds, and stab him between the shoulder blades. Fast, clean, respectable. She took one last step and was ready to charge. And then the person spoke. He said in a calm, quiet voice, "I made extra stew if you're hungry." He didn't even look back. Been a long time looking, hasn't it? Kira's froze. Her sword stayed up, but her feet wouldn't move. Her thoughts were racing. How? How'd he find out? She hadn't said anything. Perfect. Not seen. The person still hadn't turned around. He just sat there, stirring something in a metal pot over the fire, acting like it was perfectly normal to have a deadly predator behind him. Kira stood in the dark with a knife in her hand, not knowing what to do. And for the first time in 2 days of hunting, she had no idea what to do next. Kira stood still in the dark, holding her sword above her head. Her heart raced in her chest. All of her muscles were ready to attack, but something had stopped her in her tracks. The person knew she was there. He said again, "I made extra stew if you're hungry," but he still didn't turn around. He spoke in a calm, casual way, as if he were talking to an old friend instead of a predator who had been following him for 2 days. "It's been a long hunt, hasn't it?" "How?" The question screamed in Kira's head. She had done everything right. Quiet. Not there. Her training had gone perfectly. He had no way of knowing. There was no way he could have heard her. The person kept stirring the pot over the fire. Steam came out of it, and the smell was actually kind of nice. His hair was dark but had gray streaks on the sides, which made him look older than she had thought. His clothes were ripped and dirty, and they looked like they were the remains of a uniform. One of his arms was wrapped in rough bandages that were stained with dried blood. He said, "You can put the knife down," and kept cooking. "Jack Miller is my name. You've been following me since the crash site, and I'm surprised you didn't say anything sooner. The place where the crash happened. He was a pilot, then that made sense of the uniform. But it didn't say how he knew she was there. Didn't say why he wasn't running, screaming, or doing any of the other things that prey is supposed to do." Kira's chest felt like it was getting angry. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. The prey was meant to be scared, supposed to run away or fight, not sitting there talking and making food. "You think giving food will save your life, human?" she hissed as she stepped out of the shadows. "Show him her. Let him see what was going to kill him." Jack finally looked at her, and that's when Kira saw something that made her even more confused. His eyes didn't show any fear. None. Just being tired. Exhaustion that goes all the way to the bone. And something else that she couldn't quite put her finger on. Maybe interest. He seemed like he really wanted to know more about her. "No," Jack said simply, looking her in the eye without flinching. "But I thought that if you wanted me dead, you would have done it by now. So you might be interested too." He pointed to a flat rock on the other side of the fire. "Sit down. Or don't. You decide." This was crazy. There was something wrong with everything about this. Kira should attack now. Should put an end to this. That's what hunters did. That was what she had been training for her whole life. Still, her feet moved. Kira walked around the fire and sat down on the rock. Even though every bit of training and every instinct told her to kill and be done with it, but she still had her sword in her hand. She wasn't a total idiot. Jack nodded, as if this was completely normal. It was like he always had dinner guests in the middle of deadly alien jungles. He grabbed a second container that looked like it came from an emergency kit and used a metal ladle to scoop stew into it. Then he pushed it across the ground toward her. "It's not much," he said, leaning back with his own piece. "I mixed synthesized protein from my survival pack with some plants I found in the area that I knew were safe to eat. But it's warm, and out here, warm food is a treat." Kira's eyes were glued to the container, then at Jack, then back to the box. "Why?" Why what? Why aren't you running? Please? Are you fighting? She didn't mean for her voice to sound so harsh. This person was making her feel things she didn't understand, which made her mad. Jack took a slow sip of his stew and winced a little, as if it was too hot. Would any of that work? No. That SOY waste energy? He shrugged, and for some reason, that made him look even more tired. I have a daughter on Earth. 2. Katie. She's 7 years old. I told her I would bring her stories when I got home. He looked up at the sky. Now 2 moons were rising, making strange double shadows in the jungle. The stars here looked different from the ones on the Vakari homeworld. Strange. Strange. Jack went on to say that he thought die alone on a jungle moon was a pretty boring way to end. Why not make a friend first? Or at least have one good talk before the end? Kira felt something turn in her chest. It hurt, not familiar. She had felt happy before, after successful hunts. Felt proud when her clutch mates praised her skills. Had felt angry when prey fought back. But this was not the same. It felt like something was breaking inside her. She really looked at the person. He got hurt. By yourself. It's clear that you're tired. His ship had crashed, leaving him stuck on a dangerous planet. He only had a small knife on his belt as a weapon. No armor. No backup. He should be scared, and that's what he should be. But he wasn't. He was just worn out and upset, and somehow still nice enough to give food to the thing that was hunting him. Kira heard herself say, "Tell me about your daughter." She couldn't stop the words from coming out before she could even think about why she cared. Jack smiled. It wasn't a big grin. A small smile on his lips changed the whole look of his face. It made him look less like a target and more like a person. "Katie," he said, and his voice got softer in a way that hurt Kira's chest. "She's very special, very smart. She gets that from her mother. She's as stubborn as hell." He took a small device out of his pocket and tapped it a few times. Even though the screen was broken, it still worked. He turned it to show Kira's. A small person was on the screen. A kid. Her hair was light brown and pulled back into 2 tails. She didn't have any front teeth. She smiled at the person who took the picture, and her eyes were full of happiness. Jack stared at the picture like it was the most important thing in the world and said this was taken on her first day of school this year. She was scared. Totally scared. She cried all morning, held onto my leg, and begged me not to make her leave. "But you still made her go?" Kira asked. It looked mean. "Yes," Jack said. "Being afraid of something doesn't mean you won't do it. It just means you're scared when you do it." He smiled once more. That afternoon, she came home and told me about the 3 friends she had made, about her funny teacher, about the library that had 1,000 books in it. She pushed through all that fear anyway. He carefully put the device away, as if it would break if he wasn't careful. I guess that's what people do. We're always scared. Of everything. We are weak and slow, and we don't have claws, armor, or any of the other things that make a species strong. But we keep going anyway. We get out of bed. We give a shot. We hope. Kira sat there, her stew getting cold in the container she hadn't touched, and realized something scary. This person was changing everything she thought she knew. About hunting. About power. About what it meant to be a threat. "Finally, you knew I was there," she said. "How?" Jack looked at her, and the firelight made his eyes shine. Day 1. About 3 kilometers away from where the crash happened. You stepped on a log that was empty. Heard it break. I knew something was following me. You could have run away. Where? Jack pointed at the jungle all around them. "I don't know where this is." "You do. I can't run faster than you. Can't beat you in a fight. So I did what I could. I kept going. I fixed what I could on my ship, set up camp, and waited to see what you would do. You waited for me to kill you." "No," Jack said in a low voice. "I waited to see if you'd talk to me first." The fire popped and crackled, sending little sparks up into the dark sky. Instead of watching Jack, Kira found herself watching the sparks. In some way, it was easier, not as confusing. Jack took a small flat device out of one of his pockets. The screen was badly cracked and looked like it had been through hell, but when he tapped it, it still lit up. He moved his fingers slowly over the broken glass as he scrolled through something until he found what he was looking for. He turned the device back toward her and said, "Here." This one is my favorite. Kira leaned forward a little. There was another picture of the little person on the screen. Katie. She was holding on to a rail and wearing something bright yellow. There was something that looked like a vehicle for transportation behind her. Jack explained, "School bus." When he saw that she was confused, "School starts today." Look at her face. Kira's face looked. The child's eyes were puffy and red. It looked like someone had told her to smile for the picture, but she didn't want to. One hand held onto the rail so tightly that her knuckles looked white in the picture. She was scared, Jack said in a soft voice. Totally scared. She cried so hard that morning that I thought she might get sick. She kept saying she didn't want to go and that she wanted to stay home with me. She wrapped herself around my leg, and I had to pull her off that. Why did you send her? Kira asked. The young people in her tribe stayed with the clutch until they were strong enough to hunt, until they could protect themselves. It seemed cruel to send them away when they were still weak and scared. Not worth it. Jack smiled, but it was a sad smile. Being scared doesn't mean you don't do it. It just means that you do it when you're scared. And that's actually more difficult. Actually braver. He swiped to see another picture. The same kid on the same day. But this time it was different. Katie was getting off the bus and running toward the person with the camera. Her face changed completely. It was bright, excited, and happy. She was holding up a piece of paper with drawings on it in bright colors. Jack said, "That's her coming home." 6 hours later, she got off the bus and talked about everything for 30 minutes straight. About Miss Roberts, her teacher, who had a funny laugh. About the library that had more books than she'd ever seen. She talked about the 3 kids she sat with at lunch. Tommy, Lisa, and a boy whose name I can't remember right now. About the art class, the playground, and everything else. For a long time, he looked at the picture. All that fear, all that sobbing. She didn't want to leave 6 hours later. "Please let me go back the next day." Kira looked back and forth between the 2 pictures. Same kid, same day, totally different. "People send their kids away to learn?" she asked. Jack shook his head and said, "No, we learn together. That's the point." Katie wasn't the only person in that school. She had a teacher, had other kids her age, had books, toys, and people to help her. He looked up at Kira's. "I guess that's how we stay alive. We aren't the strongest, not the fastest. In fact, on Earth, we barely have any natural advantages at all." He laughed, but it wasn't a mean laugh. He seemed to be laughing at himself more, at people like him. There are birds on Earth that can see better than we can, fish that can swim faster, insects that can lift things that are 20 times their own weight. We don't have any of the things that make a species dangerous, like claws, fangs, venom, or armor, but we have each other, and we're too stubborn to give up. Kira said, "You're alone now." It looked like a clear mistake in his reasoning. For a long time, Jack looked at her. "Am I?" he asked in a low voice. "Are you here?" Kira opened her mouth to answer, but then she closed it again. She didn't know how to respond. Was she here? Are you really here? Or was she still looking for something? Are you still waiting for the right time to strike? She didn't know what to do anymore. The lines had become blurry at some point between the stew, the fire, and the pictures of the little boy. Jack didn't push for an answer. He just went back to the fire and poked it with a stick to keep it going. Sparks flew up again and danced in the dark. After a while, he asked, "Can I tell you something about Earth?" Kira nodded slowly. Jack pointed to his torn flight suit and said, "A long time ago, before we had ships, technology, or any of this, humans were prey animals. Do you know what that means? Things hunted you." Jack said, "Everything hunted us. Big cats with sharp teeth. Bears that could tear us apart with one swipe. Pack hunters that could run faster and hit harder than we could. We should have gone extinct. Should have gone extinct like thousands of other species did. But you didn't." Kira said, "No, because we figured something out. We couldn't catch the prey we wanted to eat, so we just followed them for a long time. sometimes for days. I just kept walking after them until they fell down from being so tired. We called it hunting with persistence. He smiled. We were so weak and slow that we made it a weapon. We just kept going. Ever. He took out another picture from his device. This one wasn't a picture. It was a drawing or a diagram of some kind. It showed Earth, which Kira's recognized from the intelligence briefings, with markers and dates all over IT. Do you see these? Jack pointed to the markers. These are times when people almost died out. The ice ages, eruptions of supervolcanoes, plagues, droughts, and wars. We were knocked down to just a few thousand people at least 6 times. Maybe not as much. Any smart species would have given up, but we didn't do that. We just kept on going. Fixed up. Started again. Didn't want to quit. Kira looked at the diagram. 6 times. This species has almost gone extinct 6 times. And they were still here. Still spreading throughout the galaxy. Still making things hard for everyone else. Jack said, "Your people think we're weak." It wasn't a question. He knew. "Yes," Kira said. There was no reason to lie about it. Jack looked in the eye and said, "Maybe we are." The light from the fire made his face look older, sleepy, but also in some ways strong. No, that wasn't the right word. Set. That was it. Maybe we're weak. Our skin tears very easily. Our bones can break. We get ill. We die from things that wouldn't even slow down most animals. But here's the thing. We are weak, but we don't give up. And that makes us dangerous in a way that your people don't get yet. You knew I was following you, Kira said all of a sudden. It had been bothering her. She had to know. From the start? Jack nodded. Day 1. Do you remember the empty log that was about 3 kilometers from the crash site? The one that was in the way? Kira thought back. She did remember it. She had stepped on it by mistake. It had made a small crackling sound that was hard to hear. She froze, cursed herself for making the mistake, and then kept tracking. She thought the person was too far ahead to hear it. Jack said, "I heard it crack. I knew something was behind me. Something big. Something that was trying to be quiet, but wasn't quite quiet enough." "You could have killed me at any time," Kira said. She didn't know if she was trying to scare him, or just say something that was true. "Probably," Jack said without much thought. "Almost certainly, yes. You are faster than I am, more powerful than me, more weapons, more training. I couldn't run away from you, couldn't beat you in a fight. So I did what people do best. What is it?" "Kept going," Jack said simply. "I fixed what I could on the ship. Set up camp every night. Started fires. Made food. Prayed for the best." He pointed at the jungle around them. "That's all you could do sometimes. Just keep walking and hope that tomorrow is better than today." Kira's looked at this person. This weak, soft, broken thing that should have died 2 days ago. He had changed her hunt into something else entirely. Something she wasn't trained to do, not familiar with. She had learned how to track, to die, to win prizes. But no one had told her what to do when the prey gave her food and told her stories about their child. Jack said quietly, "We're dangerous, but not because we're strong. But we turn enemies into friends. Because we share our fire even when we shouldn't. Because we won't give up even when it's the right thing to do." He smiled. "That's why we'll make it. That's why we'll keep moving through the galaxy. Not because we can win a fight, but we'll make you not want to fight us in the first place." Kira's realized he was right as he sat there across the fire from this strange, stubborn, and impossibly kind person. As dawn drew near, the sky started to change color. The deep purple color faded to lighter shades, then to amber and soft orange. Kira's had been sitting by the fire all night and listening to Jack about the Earth, about his daughter, about the history of humans, and all the times they almost died out but didn't, about hope, determination, and stubbornness. And at some point during those hours, she had also begun to speak about her own clutch, about the training she had to go through to become a hunter, about the pressure to show that she could do it and bring back a good trophy, about how everyone had laughed when she picked a person as her first real hunt. Now the fire was down to just glowing coals. The jungle around them was waking up. Strange birds were making strange calls. Insects were buzzing, and the whole forest was alive with sound. Kira SS slowly stood up. She had stiff legs because she had been sitting for so long. She reached down and touched the blade, which was still in its sheath on her belt. She had put away hours ago, but she couldn't remember when. "You should die," she said. The words were hard to say. In some way wrong. "Come back with proof of my hunt. That's why I came here." From where he was sitting, Jack looked up at her. His face looked tired because he hadn't slept at all. She hadn't either. He nodded slowly. "I know." Neither of them moved. Kira's hand stayed on her knife, but she didn't pull it out. Jack didn't grab his knife. They just stood there, looking at each other over the dying fire. Then the noise came. A loud electronic screech cut through the morning air. Very high. "It hurts." Kira's ears instinctively flattened against her head. Jack jumped up, his eyes wide. He started to say, "The distress beacon." He didn't have time to finish. The sound came from the trees. Deep, huge. Kira could feel it in her chest because it was so loud. She recognized that sound. All of the predators on Tolera. 7 knew that sound. Beast of the Ridge. The thing crashed through the trees as if they weren't there. Branches broke. The ground shook. Then it was in the clearing with them, and Kira's understood how badly this had gone wrong. It was a huge creature. It was about 10 feet tall at the shoulder and 20 feet long from nose to tail. It had thick, overlapping scales all over its body that looked like armor, 4 huge legs with claws that dug into the ground, and its head was full of teeth, rage, and territorial anger. It had come here because of the distress signal. The electronic signal had set off its territorial instincts, making it think that something was threatening it in its own hunting ground. Jack yelled, "Run!" as he grabbed his pack. Kira should have run. All of her instincts told her to run. Ridge beasts were the top predators. You didn't fight them. You stayed away from them. If you were smart, you heard them coming and got out of their way as quickly as you could. But she didn't run away. Instead, she pulled out her sword and stood between Jack and the beast. She didn't give it any thought. Not planned. Her body moved on its own. Why? Why was she guarding prey? Why was she putting herself in danger for an animal she had come here to kill? She had no idea. Didn't have time to work it out. The beast on the ridge charged. Kira's dubbed to the left, and her blade flashed out. She aimed for the soft spot between the scales on its side, but her blade barely touched it. The scales were too thick, too strong. The beast's tail whipped around and hit her in the side. She flew through the air, hitting a tree hard enough to knock the air out of her lungs. She could barely see, but she could tell the beast was turning toward Jack. Saw it open its mouth, which had rows of teeth that could cut through anything. Jack didn't go for a run. He took something out of his bag that was small, red, and shaped like a gun. Flare for emergencies. A must-have in every survival kit. He aimed it straight at the beast's face. "Hey, ugly," he yelled. The flare shot out bright red and very hot. It hit the ridge beast right in the middle of the eyes. The animal roared and shook its head hard. It had been temporarily blinded by the light. Made it hard to understand. Kira pushed herself up, even though her ribs hurt. This was their big break. Their only chance, maybe. She ran forward with a raised knife. The beast was thrashing around to get its sight back. She saw her chance. The soft tissue under its jaw where the scales didn't quite meet. With all her might, she pushed her blade up. The beast roared again, but this time it was more than just anger. There was a lot of blood on its neck, but it wasn't enough. Not even close to enough to bring it down. Jack took a burning branch from the fire. It was one of the last pieces that was still smoking. He ran in from the side and stabbed the monster's eye with it. The creature lost its mind, beating, spinning. Its tail hit Jack in the chest and knocked him down. Kira's arm got caught in his claws, and she felt something tear. "Hey!" Her left arm became numb and useless, but they kept on fighting. Jack yelled out directions. Left side, that place's broken scales. His tactical mind was still working, even though he was in pain and scared. He was thinking, making plans, looking for flaws. Kira SS did what he told them to do. She hit where he told her to. He yelled warnings, but they dodged. They moved together as if they had been hunting together for years instead of just minutes. Jack was there when Kira fell. He grabbed her strong arm and pulled her out of the way of those huge claws. Kira put herself between Jack and the beast when he fell, taking hits that were meant for him. They weren't strong enough on their own. But when they were together, they were different. Something neither of them had thought they would be. Now, the ridge beast was bleeding from a dozen cuts, going slower. Its roars were less strong. Kira saw her chance, a clear shot at its throat. She took it, stabbing it deep and pulling it across. The monster stumbled, went 2 more steps. Then it fell apart and hit the ground so hard that the ground shook. The clearing was quiet, only for a second. Then the sound of the jungle started up again. Birds, bugs. Life went on as if nothing had happened. Kira stood there, breathing hard. Her left arm was useless and hung at her side. Every breath hurt her ribs. Her scales were covered in blood, some of it hers and some of it the beast's. A few feet away, Jack was on his knees. His flight suit was ripped across the chest, and there was a deep cut underneath. The fabric soaked up the blood, but he was still alive. They were both still alive. "You could have run," Kira said. Her voice was rough and hurt. Jack looked at her. He was smiling, even though he was pale from losing blood. Really smiling. "So could you." And all of a sudden, Kira got it. I really understood in a way that went beyond words or explanations. This was what made people dangerous. Not their strength. They didn't have any. Not their weapons, armor, or speed. This was it. This complete refusal to leave each other. This skill to change enemies into friends in just one night. This stubborn, foolish, and impossible hope that maybe, just maybe, it would be better to work together than to die alone. Jack stayed to fight for her. A creature that had been after him, who had made plans to kill him. Without thinking, he would have put his life on the line for hers. And she had done the same for him. Kira looked down at the dead ridge beast, at the campsite that was destroyed, at the person who was hurt, but still trying to stand up. "Come," she said, moving to help him with her good arm. "Let me help you with your boat." Jack leaned on her, and they both started to walk. Hunted and hunter, prey and predator. Not anymore. Something new for both. Something better. 3 days of work. 3 days of Kira learning things she never thought she would need to know, and Jack teaching her even though his ribs hurt, and he had bandages around his chest. 3 days of fixing a broken ship with spare parts, hope, and Vakari engineering knowledge that Jack didn't have. They found a clearing about half a mile from where the ridge beast had attacked and parked the ship there. Jack had gotten it this far before it died completely. It was finally ready now. The engines made a humming sound. Not a healthy, strong hum like they should have. More like a sick cough. But they were moving. He used metal from the emergency supplies, and some things Kira had helped him find in the jungle to patch up the hull. It looked awful, like something that was held together by hope and extra wire. But it would fly. Most likely. Kira stepped back from the hull and used her good hand to wipe off oil and grease. Jack had made a makeshift sling for her left arm. It would get better, but it would take some time. She looked over the repairs one last time to make sure they were done right. Finally, she said, "It'll get you home." Jack was at the bottom of the ramp to get on. He looked better than he had 3 days ago. The cut on his ribs was healing well, with no signs of infection, but he still moved slowly as if everything hurt, which it probably did. He had that small device in his hand, the one that has pictures. The broken screen showed his daughter Katie's face. She was smiling and missing teeth. Jack said, "Thank you," and looked at Kira's. "For everything. For not killing me. Thank you for helping me. For everything." Kira reached into her hunter's pouch. Every Vakari warrior carried a small leather bag. There were things inside that showed her status. Evidence of her training. Who she is. She took out a small piece of carved bone. It was as big as her thumb. It was carved with her clan mark, which was made up of complicated lines and symbols that told the story of her life. Who her parents were. What kind of clutch she came from. What her rank was. Each Vakari warrior had one. It was more than just a gift. It was who you were. She pushed into Jack's hand. She told him to show this to any Vakari he met. It makes you look good. As someone who should not be hunted. Just as dangerous. Jack looked at the little carved bone in his hand. I'm not a threat. I'm just... Yes, you are. Kira cut him off. She spoke with authority. I came here to kill a person. I thought it would be easy to catch. Something that is weak and afraid. Something that would run, beg, or die without making a sound. She moved closer to make sure he could hear her. Getting it right, that I found something much scarier than any animal I've ever hunted instead. Jack raised one eyebrow. He could still make that almost smile even though he was hurt and tired. What's that? Kira said. A species that makes friends with their hunters. A species that gives food to things that hunt them in the dark. That sits by a fire and tells stories instead of running. That won't give up, even when it would be smart to do so. The safe choice. She looked up at the sky. The 2 moons were going down. There were thousands of stars coming out, more than she could count. Earth was up there somewhere. There was a little girl up there waiting for her dad to come home. Kira said softly, Your people will inherit the galaxy, Jack Miller. Not because you're strong, you're not. Not because you're quick, well-armed, or just dangerous by nature. But only after you make friends with it. You'll sit down by the fire with your enemies and give them food. And somehow, against all odds, you'll make them your friends. She turned to look at him. That's more dangerous than any gun. That's stronger than any army. Because you can't fight someone who doesn't want to be your enemy. Jack was quiet for a long time. Then he smiled, the same sad, tired smile she had seen by the campfire that first night. He reached out to her with his palm open. Kira had learned this gesture over the last 3 days. The handshake between people. A hello, a farewell, a sign of respect between people who are equal. With her good hand, she reached out and grabbed his. His skin was soft and warm. So weak. Without even trying, she could crush his hand. But she didn't. She held it gently, just like he had taught her. Don't forget about Katie, she said. Jack said, I will. And Kira's? Thanks. For sitting by my fire that night. For not killing me. Thanks for giving me a chance. He let go of her hand and faced the ship. Slowly and carefully climbed the ramp. He turned around one last time at the top and waved his hand. Kira raised her own hand in response. The ramp for boarding closed. The engines got louder, and that sick wheeze turned into a roar that made it hard to breathe. The ship took off, sending up dust and dead leaves. It shook. Kira thought it might fall for a moment, but it got better, rose higher. The engines screamed as they worked hard, but they held. She saw it rise into the purple sky. I saw it get smaller and smaller, a dark dot on the colored clouds, then even smaller. It finally disappeared completely, lost among the stars. For a long time, Kira stood there after it was gone. Then she turned around and began the long walk back to the settlement where her people were waiting. She was gone for 5 days. 5 days of traveling through the jungle, which was harder and slower because of her hurt arm. But she did it. When she got there, her clutch mates were already there. They quickly gathered around her, their eyes shining with excitement. They wanted to know all about your hunt. Did you get the trophy? Where is it? Let us see. Kira looked at them. With these warriors she'd trained with, grew up with, they thought they would hear a story about a successful kill, about honor, glory, and proving herself worthy. Did you win the trophy? Rask, her clutch brother, asked again. Kira's hand went down to her belt, to the place where her clan mark should have been, the empty space where there used to be things. No, she said softly. The trophy took me instead. They looked at her, not sure what to do, waiting for her to tell me. I went to hunt a person, Kira said. I followed him for 2 days. At any time, I could have killed him, should have killed him, but I didn't. Someone asked, why not? Kira said, because he gave me food, because he told me about his daughter. He stood and fought with me instead of running away when death came for both of us, because he showed me that we were wrong about people. Everyone. Wrong from the start. The warriors who had gathered moved around uncomfortably. This wasn't the story they thought it would be. Humans are weak, Rask said, like he was reminding her of something she already knew. That Kira said, maybe. Their bodies are soft. Their claws are weak. They don't have any natural armor, venom, or real weapons. They should be prey by every standard we have. She looked at the other people in her clutch, at the warriors who had laughed when she picked a human as her first hunt. But they're the most dangerous kind of animal I've ever seen, she said. Not because they can kill you, but they can make you not want to kill them. They give you friendship when you give them violence. When you come to kill them, they share their fire. They pick hope over fear, which would be smarter. And somehow, against all odds, it works. Someone asked, are you saying we should be afraid of them? Kira said, I'm saying we should understand them. I mean that a species that stays alive by making friends with its enemies will take over the galaxy. Not by taking over. By connecting. We won't even know it's happening until it's too late. She ran her finger over the empty space on her belt where her clan mark used to be. I gave him my mark, she said, and I would do it again, because he deserved it, not by beating me in a fight, but by showing me what true strength looks like. The power to be nice when you could be mean, to give when you could keep, to hope when you should give up. Kira looked up at the sky. Jack was flying home to somewhere, going back to Earth, Katie, and whatever life awaited him there. That's why they'll win, she said in a low voice. Every time. Not because they are soldiers, but they make warriors not want to fight them anymore. And Jack Miller's patched-together ship limped toward home from somewhere in the depths of space. There were two things on the control panel, next to him. A broken device that showed his daughter's smiling face, and a small piece of carved bone with Akari clan symbols on it. Even in the darkest jungle and on the most dangerous world, humanity's best weapon wasn't a gun, knife, or bomb. It was a fire in a camp, and the desire to share it with anyone who sat down next to you, even if that person had come to kill you, especially then.